I glanced at the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw her. A woman, sitting in my back seat. Story 1. The Woman in the Back Seat. Submitted by Caleb. I work late. Too late. Some nights, I don't get off until 1 or 2 in the morning, and it's a 40-minute drive home along a mostly empty stretch of highway surrounded by thick woods. The kind of road where your headlights feel swallowed by the dark, and the trees look like they're leaning in. This happened in mid-October, around 2 a.m. The air was cold enough to fog the windshield from the inside, and I remember turning up the heat and letting my brain drift into that semi-awake autopilot you slip into after a long shift. The road was completely empty until suddenly, out of nowhere, headlights appeared behind me. Close behind me. Whoever it was, they came up fast, because one moment the road was pitch black, and the next my entire car interior lit up with bright white light. I tapped my brakes lightly, hoping they'd back off. They didn't. They got closer. The driver began flashing their high beams, over and over. At first I assumed it was some jerk trying to intimidate me, but then the flashes got more frantic, almost like a warning. I pulled over to let them pass, but they didn't pass. They stopped directly behind me. That's when my stomach sank. I remember thinking, why stop? My hands tightened on the steering wheel, and something told me not to get out. I glanced at the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw her. A woman, sitting in my back seat. Her face was half lit by the flashing headlights behind me. Messy hair, wide eyes. She slowly turned her head from looking at me to looking at the driver in the car behind us. I froze. My mind couldn't even process it at first. She hadn't been there when I started driving. I was sure of it. The woman slowly turned her head toward me. That tiny movement broke whatever freeze I was in. I flung the door open and bolted into the road. The car behind me peeled out, skidding sideways as its tires tore into the gravel shoulder. It swerved off into the trees as I ran, stumbling and nearly falling. When I dared to look back, my car doors were open, driver's side and back seat. Both the interior lights were on, but the woman was gone. The police found muddy footprints on the back floor mat. They were so small they thought they might belong to a teen or a thin woman. Along with that, they found a pair of zip ties wedged between the seat cushions and a serrated folding knife underneath the front passenger seat. They told me, very calmly, that she was probably planning to abduct me, or worse, and that the driver behind me must have seen her sit up in my back seat as he passed by earlier. The police never found her. They never found the driver who tried to warn me. And to this day, every single time I get into my car, no matter the time of day, I still check the back seat. Twice. Story 2. The Baby Monitor. Submitted by Jordan. This happened about 2 years ago, shortly after my wife and I had our first child. Like most new parents, we bought a Wi-Fi-enabled baby monitor with night vision, audio, and a pan-tilt camera. I wish we never had. It was around 1 a.m. when the monitor clicked on by itself. Our daughter often made small noises in her sleep, so I didn't think anything of it until I looked more closely. The audio was live, but all I heard at first was breathing. Slow, deep, adult breathing. Not a baby. Not my wife. Not me. The camera then panned across the nursery on its own, slowly, like someone was controlling it remotely. It stopped at the crib. My daughter was asleep, perfectly still, completely fine. But in the far corner of the room, where the night vision barely reached, there was something else. A shape, like a person standing in the darkest part of the corner. I blinked hard, leaned closer. The shape didn't move, didn't shift. but it was definitely there. I sprinted up the stairs, heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy. I turned the corner into the nursery, flipped on the light. Nothing. The corner was empty. My daughter was asleep. The window was closed. I searched the entire house, checked every closet, every door, every window frame. Everything was locked from the inside. Try explaining to police that your baby monitor showed a silhouette of a person standing over your child at 1 a.m. They told us it was likely the camera got hacked, that someone could have been remotely controlling it. They recommended replacing the monitor entirely. But here's the part I can't get out of my mind. I asked the officer, just out of paranoid desperation, if someone hacked it, would they also be able to project something onto the video feed? He shook his head. No. If you saw a figure, that's because the camera saw a figure. We threw the monitor in the trash that night. The next morning, my wife found something taped to our front door. A Polaroid photo of the nursery, taken from inside the room. And in the corner of the picture, barely visible, was the same dark figure. To this day, we have no idea how it got into the house without triggering anything, or how it got out, but we moved out within a week. Story 3. The Woods Behind Our House, submitted by Melissa. My parents' property has always backed up to a forest that looks like it never ends. Thick, dark, tangled. Even as a kid, I felt like the woods were watching us more than we watched them. Growing up, we'd hear things all the time. Whistling that didn't belong to any bird. Footsteps that crunched leaves even when the wind was dead still. And murmurs just soft enough that you couldn't tell if they were far away or right behind you. My parents always brushed it off. Old forests make old noises, my dad would say. But there was one night, one I still can't shake, that made me realize those noises were never just the woods. I was home visiting for the weekend. It was late autumn, the air sharp enough to sting your nose, and most of the leaves had already fallen, leaving the trees looking tall and skeletal. Around midnight, my dog Cooper needed to go out. He's a big shepherd mix, usually fearless. He once charged at a black bear like it was a UPS driver. We stepped out onto the back porch. The motion light clicked on, but it didn't reach far, just enough to spill a pale glow across the yard and the first sliver of woods. Cooper trotted forward, tail relaxed, until we got near the tree line. Then he stopped, froze completely, ears up, body stiff, staring into the darkness between the trunks. His fur rose straight up along his spine. I opened my mouth to call to him, but that's when I heard it. A voice. My mother's voice. Soft. Familiar. Coming from the woods. Melissa, come here. I can't describe the way my body reacted. It was like every instinct in me recoiled at once. My mom was asleep upstairs. I had literally said goodnight to her 30 minutes earlier. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The voice came again, but this time it sounded deeper in the forest, like it was stepping backward. Melissa, I need help. But the tone, God, the tone. That was what made my stomach drop. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't right. It was flat, hollow, close to human, but missing something fundamental, like a copy that didn't understand what emotion actually sounded like. Cooper whimpered and backed up until his side pressed against my leg. His leash was trembling in my hand because he was shaking so badly. Then another voice chimed in. Same pitch, same cadence, perfectly synchronized with the first one, as if they shared the same breath. Melissa, come here. Something stepped between the trees. I heard it, not just footsteps. Wait, dragging. A thick, rhythmic pull into the soil. I yanked Cooper backward so forcefully he yelped. We ran. I slammed the door behind us. locked it, and shut every curtain in the house. My parents thought I was overreacting. "Maybe you heard a coyote," my dad said, sipping coffee like I hadn't just described a forest microphone mimic. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my mom called me to the back window. She wasn't smiling anymore. "Look," she whispered. The motion light had gone off, but the early morning sun made everything clear. In the mud leading from the tree line were footprints. Bare footprints. Human. But the stride was too long, too uneven, like something wasn't used to walking that way. Beside them, running parallel, were deep, gouging claw marks. Long, curved, cutting inches into the earth like something had dug its claws in to steady itself while it walked upright. The prints ended only 5 feet from the porch steps. My dad didn't have anything to say then. We found nothing else that day. No hair, no tools, no sign of an actual person. Just those tracks, leading from the forest toward our house like something had come out and watched. My parents still live there. They still hear things sometimes. Whistles, footsteps, voices that sound just a little too much like someone you know. They pretend it's nothing. But I haven't stepped foot in that backyard after dark since. And I never will. Because whatever called my name that night, it learned my voice too. Story 4. The Dorm Shower Incident. Submitted by Mia. My freshman year of college, I lived in one of the oldest dorms on campus. Rumors spread fast. People claimed the place was haunted, that a girl had died there decades ago, that weird things happened at night. I never believed any of it. It was 2 a.m. I was exhausted, wired on caffeine, and desperate to take a hot shower. I grabbed my towel, walked down the silent hallway, and stepped into the dimly lit bathroom. One of the showers was running. The water was steaming hot, so hot I could feel the heat from several feet away, but nobody was inside it. I called out. No one answered. I stepped closer and hesitantly pulled the curtain aside. The shower was empty, but the steam had fogged the tiles. And on the tiles, written in long, dripping streaks, were the words, "Not you." I staggered back, half slipping on the wet floor, and ran to get the RA. When we returned, the water was off and the tiles were perfectly dry. No words written anywhere. I tried to laugh it off. Tried to tell myself I imagined it. I didn't, because later that night, as I finally lay in bed trying to sleep, someone started knocking on my dorm room door. Slow, soft, rhythmic. I called out, asking who it was. Silence. Then a whisper through the door. It was supposed to be her. I left college after that semester and finished my degree online. I will never stay in a dorm again. Story 5. The Man at the Window. Submitted by Kevin. I lived on the second floor of an old brick apartment building. The type of place where every sound feels a little too close, like the walls are eavesdropping. The pipes rattled like loose bones. Something hummed inside the structure at all hours, and the draft under my bedroom door breathed like a sleeping animal. It wasn't home. It was cheap, and cheap was what I could afford. The night it started, the city was buried under a blizzard so vicious it felt like the wind was trying to sandpaper the building down. Snow hammered the window. The old heater groaned in surrender. My bedroom was dim, lit only by the warm amber glow of a cheap lamp. I was scrolling through my phone, half asleep, when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Sharp, clean, purposeful. It was the sort of sound that makes your brain immediately go, someone is trying to get your attention. I froze mid-scroll. Listened. The storm should have drowned everything out, but somehow those taps felt close, like they were coming from inside the room. Then another. Tap. I looked at the window. The curtains were barely moving. That same weak draft slipping through the frame like a sneaking hand. I told myself it was ice. Maybe something blown loose. Except there were no trees near my window. Nothing close enough to hit the glass. Outside was just open air and a lonely lamppost. My chest tightened with this slow, nauseating realization. Nothing should be tapping on my window, and yet something was. I stood up, moved toward the curtains with this strange, numb dread that started in my stomach and crawled up my spine. My hand hovered over the fabric. A voice in my head whispered, "Don't look. Don't look." But curiosity, real, ugly, human curiosity, nudged me on. I pulled the curtain back, and he was there. A man, standing outside my second-floor window. Not hanging, not climbing, not floating in some graceful, ghostly way. Just standing upright, as if the night air had turned solid beneath his feet. His face was inches from the glass. And God, I wish it had been a mask, or a trick of the storm, or anything other than what it was. His skin looked wrong, like someone had stretched it too tight over his skull while it was still frozen. Pale and blotchy and almost glossy, as if thawing unevenly. His lips were slightly parted, like he'd forgotten how to hold his own mouth shut. But his eyes were the worst part. Wide, reflective, completely unblinking. They didn't search my face. They locked onto it. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring into me. I screamed so hard my throat hurt for days. I fell backward, hit the bed frame, and yanked the curtain shut. I stood there, holding the fabric tight in my fists, shaking, listening. Nothing. Eventually, with trembling hands and tears, I don't even remember crying, I peeked through the corner of the curtain. Gone. I forced myself to check the snow below. Nothing. No footprints. No disturbed powder. It was pristine, like he had never been there at all. 2 days passed. I barely slept. Every little sound felt targeted. I kept seeing that face in the dark when I blinked. My breath fogged in the bedroom, even though the heat was blasting. I chalked it up to stress, isolation, winter depression. I tried to rationalize it into something manageable. That worked until night 3. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up. No reason, no sound, just this sickening feeling that I'd been pulled up from a nightmare. But the nightmare hadn't let go. I could see my breath again, but the air didn't feel cold. The cold was under my blanket. A dense, heavy cold that clung to my legs like something had crawled in while I slept. I froze. Then I felt it. A touch. Not a brush. Not a twitch of fabric. Knuckles. Dragging across my shin. Slowly. Curiously. Like something trying to memorize the shape of me. I bit down a scream. The room around me felt wrong. Thick. It felt like someone else's breath was filling it. The dark beside my bed felt occupied, but in a way that didn't take up space, just stole it from me. And then, inches from my pillow, from a darkness so narrow I shouldn't have been able to hear anything from it, a whisper rasped out. Let me in. Not angry, not demanding, just patient. Like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. Like it knew I'd break before it ever had to. I didn't look. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe right. I just stayed frozen until the faintest bit of sunrise, this thin, helpless sliver of gold, touched the edge of the curtain. And as light crept in, the cold left the bed. Not all at once. Like it slipped out. Like something withdrawing. By noon I had packed everything I could carry into a single duffel, shoved the rest of my life into the dumpster, and left. I didn't break my lease. I didn't tell management anything. I didn't even lock the door behind me. I didn't want anything following me. A week later, stupid curiosity again, I drove past the building. My old window was dark. Curtains drawn. Empty. The landlord had put up a fresh, vacant sign. It's still there. Nobody rents that unit. Nobody even tours it. And every time I pass, I get this awful, sinking feeling that the room isn't empty at all. Just waiting. Quiet. Because I don't think he wanted me. I think he wanted somewhere to stay. And now that window is his.